I often get this crazy idea in my mind when I reflect on what school was really like. And like so many people will just say, yeah, I went to school, I went to college, it wasn't a big deal. I want to touch on this for me because it's a very negative perspective. And that's not because I'm negative about it, that's because it was negative against me. I think, and you have to bear in mind that I kind of grew up with The Matrix as well. So I kind of watched it at a young age, and I wasn't supposed to. I could get away with watching it now, but I think watching it at a young age, going through what I went through, um, being alienated by people, I don't think that helped anything, and I think that there was kind of this resentment, um, from me around people. I kind of went there expecting some kind of respect and acknowledgement, not validation, but like, yeah, I respect you, you respect me. Um and I felt like I was in a simulation. Mm. And I think whenever I go back to whenever I go back to those instances, um whenever I go back to those days when I wouldn't be there 100%. I wouldn't commit. Like, I was there, but I felt like, oh, I wasn't really there. Like, I was cool, but like I wasn't. Like, I would look at myself back then and think, if I could now, I'd be like, cringe, bro. That's cringe. And I felt even probably like still to this day, like I've come to accept who I am as a person and that I'm not for everybody, and that's calm, bro. Um and I just love who I am, and I love the journey that I've built for myself with this channel, with this character, being confused and why and whatever, what have you. But it was a terrible experience for me at a young age, and it killed me. Especially New Park. And I said in one of my freestyles, I said when I went to New Park, I was in that. When I went to Wolfren, I was in that. When I went to Juniper, I was in that. In the subtitles, New Park was intact, like it was there, but it replaced Wolfren with Warren, and I misspoke with Junior. I was supposed to quote it as Juniper, but I said Junior. I was like, you know what? I don't care. But looking at it now, if I ever redo a verse, I'm gonna try and write it down. I'm gonna try and say I gotta put that in there, and I need closure on that. But I don't know. Maybe it will come. But this whole thing is just my experience, and I don't have a fond memory of education. I just try to be educated, and I think what really cemented my resentment towards this shithole and certain places was the lack of respect for me as a person. I guess you could kind of say I went through the same thing CM Punk went through. However, I'm kind of different to him in a sense because I would never speak up or tell people how I felt. I was just kind of like, I was just there. I was trying to appeal to everybody and it wouldn't work. And I often came off as cringe. So, you know, that happened and other things kind of happened, and, I'm here. But, I'm just disgusted with this system. I'm disgusted with this day and age, this generation, and how I was treated. And when I went to Juniper and I bumped into, well, not bumped into, but like I walked into the classroom and I sat next to Josh McCarthy, the way he saved me, and from that moment on I respected him. I walked with him, I spoke to him. I was like, this is my future now. Like, I'm not going back, I'm going forward. And I've always been about human decency, and that's just my point. My point is that no one grows up with that intention, and because they're taught from an early age to hate, and then they reach the ripe old age and they're like, I wish I'd done that differently. Not me. No. Only one thing, and that was to not get to know those guys more than I could have, more than I had, because I didn't know them. And that's one of my many regrets, is not getting to know Tyrese more, Josh McCarthy more, Manjinder more, and Yusuf. and there's a lot of guys in that box. Maybe Thomas Zapta, who I'd never mentioned enough, or Tony, the guy that did sign language. There's so many guys that I could mention that are there. One thing I can say about Tyrese is he was a mensch. He would always do things for other people, and and I could just believe that with him because he's that guy, and I respect him, and I loved training with him. He was one of my brothers, and I think this generation just needs to be that. I think we need to remind ourselves, you know what, let's stop copying other people and let's be ourselves. This whole movement, this whole fascist takeover is disgusting to me, and I'm going to keep calling it out. And I also want to come off here, but I want to mention this really quickly. Anybody that comments it's not real, it's an illusion, you need to educate yourselves. What we have in this day and age, this government takeover, this movement, is fascism. It's being toxic. It's real narcissism. It's cloaked, it's concealed, it's hidden. When people expose themselves on microphones in podcasts, I'm getting pissed off. And I want to punch them hard in their face. Not because I'm brave, but because I hate them. I hate how stupid they are. But also I should feel a little bit. No, 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 no. Don't go, yeah, thank you for admitting that you're a piece of shit. Like, punch them, smack them, whack them. You know what I mean? We can't keep enabling it and going, yeah, we're gonna call it off. We're gonna turn the other way. We're gonna turn the cheek. Like, call them out for what they are. They're disgusting. They are, and they will be. And that's why in 2017 I called out Kadeem. I called out a lot of people from New Park, Shane, Mitchell, Brett, Lloyd, the rest of them. I'm gonna continue to call them out. And going forward, I'm gonna bring this character back and I'm gonna take him to a whole nother level. Hard times in 2023, but I got more energy coming, bro. I'm gonna try and be busy next year, so I'll try and do some uploads this year, but I don't know, man, But school, college, they were disgusting. They treated me poorly, and I never want to go back there. And if they say, "Would you ever go back?" I'm gonna talk to them. I'm gonna tell them I've aged out of that one. And I'm not gonna be that guy that they think I am. I'm gonna be the guy I want to be. I'm gonna be the guy that I know I can be, and I'm gonna perform to the best of my abilities. I'm gonna be the highest level possible, and I'm gonna be in this universe. I'm not gonna be in no little minority with the rest of the wannabes trying to be, because I'm not that guy. I'm just him. I'm who I am. And that's just it. You know, I never grew up with social media. I never grew up with Call of Duty, all these things that these kids have handed to them now. I was never that kid, and maybe I'm better off, you know, knowing that. Maybe it was destiny. Maybe it was meant to happen. But I'm just thankful. I'm thankful that no one got me into any of these trends. I'm glad I didn't grow up with Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and all the rest of this social media nonsense. And I grew up valuing people, valuing things, and quality time with my family members. I'm glad I grew up like that. And I occasionally had time for a bit of television, a bit of Simpsons, a bit of Futurama, and whatever else came on television. And yeah, I'm just gonna leave that there. These kids today, they will never know. We worked hard growing up and they just have it handed to them.